Hi, my name is Kurtis Wicka, and I'm a plant operator at the Manhattan Wastewater Treatment Plant. On the 21st of March, I received approval to research the feasibility of implementing an anaerobic digester at the Manhattan Wastewater Plant. The reason I want to explore this topic is that the currently employed aerobic method is no longer adequate by today's standards and, quite frankly, is inferior to the anaerobic method that I plan to propose to you today. To begin, I would like to take a moment and elaborate on the basic differences between the two processes. If you turn your attention to slide 2, you'll notice two images. The image on the left is a standard aerobic digester, while the image on the right is a standard model for my proposed anaerobic digestion process. Now, quite obviously, the difference between the two is the aerobic method is an open top design, where the anaerobic method is a closed system design. However, there are many critical unseen differences between the two. First off, the aerobic model has a large stirring arm underneath the surface to mix the sludge, as well as oxygen blowers beneath the surface to help introduce oxygen into the system and aerate the mixture of sludge. Meanwhile, the anaerobic method mainly relies on bacteria to break down the sludge and has few mechanical parts. Now, for the remainder of my presentation, I would like to highlight the advantages of the anaerobic system by breaking it down to two main points: environmental advantages and economic advantages. Now, the first main environmental advantage I'd like to highlight is the reduced rate of atmospheric pollution. As you see in my diagrams in slide 3, the open top design of the aerobic digester allows the produced gases to escape directly into the atmosphere. And of those produced gases, we see carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Now, carbon dioxide is, as many of you know, the primary greenhouse gas that is polluting our atmosphere today. And hydrogen sulfide, I will talk a little bit more on that later, but it is just another greenhouse gas, basically. Now, in comparison, on the right side here in diagram 2, an anaerobic system is a closed system and does not allow any of the produced gases to escape into the atmosphere. So as you see again, carbon dioxide shows up, cannot be released into the atmosphere because it is trapped in the silo. It also produces methane, but that is also trapped in the silo and actually is used later in a different process. Now, this benefit is obvious, as we should try to curb any unnecessary pollution when possible. And the anaerobic digestion system makes this possible, makes it feasible, and it makes it very attractive. The next environmental benefit is the lower electrical demand of the anaerobic digestion system. Now, on the next slide here, I have highlighted the mechanical needs of each system. Where the aerobic digester requires pumps to bring sludge in and out. It requires oxygen blowers to aerate the mix, as well as requires a large mechanical stirring arm to keep the mix flowing and moving. On the flip side, we have the anaerobic digestion model, which only uses the pumps to bring sludge in and take sludge out. And quite frankly, if you eliminate 2/3 of the machinery in a process and all of the associated electric costs, you are lowering your electric bills by large magnitudes, especially by getting rid of that large oxygen bubbler. That machine alone dwarfs both the large stirring arm and the pumps, and is probably the most electrical demanding thing in the entire wastewater plant. And by implementing an anaerobic design, you'll be eliminating that. And that alone will save you thousands upon thousands of dollars of electrical costs a day. Now, this is all made possible because the anaerobic digestion model takes advantage of the chemistry of bacteria reducing the sludge volume and physics that allows the gases to escape. And so we do not need any of those mechanical parts. And that just makes us overall more energy efficient. Now, the third environmental advantage is the prospect of generating renewable energy. You heard me right. This is not a wind turbine. This is not a solar panel, but this is basically just a tank filled with sludge. How does it produce renewable energy, you say? Well, we could do this by combusting the produced methane gas to create heat. We use that heat to superheat steam and water to generate electricity via steam turbines. And I have displayed this process here on my next slide in diagram 3. And again, this is an obvious benefit, as we could have on-site renewable energy and further and just separate us from the need for electricity generated by a coal plant or another fossil fuel. And there's also a few secondary environmental benefits. First is the elimination of produced odors. If we refer back to the first diagram here, we will revisit hydrogen sulfide, or H2S. Now, hydrogen sulfide in a gaseous form is very unpleasant, and you don't really want to be around it when it's in the air. It's a bad odor. And again, it is a closed system that we should be implementing. It would prevent any gases from escaping and basically causing odor pollution in the nearby area. Now, the next secondary benefit is the literal footprint of the digester. An anaerobic digestion system, it roughly takes up 1/3 of the space that the aerobic system would inhabit. Now, this means the formerly used space could be converted into green space, or even it could be used to make a more efficient layout of the treatment plant. Now, that about rounds up the environmental benefits of an anaerobic digestion system. I'll now pivot to detail my next main point about the economic benefits of the anaerobic digestion system. The first economic benefit I'd like to talk about is the opportunity to sell that produced electricity back to the grid. And I'd like to direct your attention back to slide 7, where I have that methane combustion slide again. And using that same renewable electricity source, we can both power our entire plant off renewable energy. It has the energy capacity to power all the systems that we need, and we'll still have electricity left over that we could sell back to the grid and sell back to Evergy for profit. And this will offset a lot of costs for us. And it is probably the largest benefit of this system. Now, additionally, there are 2 smaller economic benefits that would save the city of Manhattan even more money, on top of the fact that we're not only producing our electricity and selling what we don't use. And one of these 2 smaller costs is the lack of machine costs. As I highlighted, there's very little machines associated with this process, so there's no longer going to be any electricity costs. There's no longer going to be any maintenance costs, and this also leads to a reduction of personnel costs. Due to the process's simple, hands-off nature, we don't need anybody actively engaged in it. There's less of a need to provide a support staff for the sludge digestion process. That'll give us the opportunity to run the treatment plant with less total staff and therefore less salary, save the city more money. Yeah, and through all these economic benefits, the wastewater treatment plant would have the financial flexibility to do several good things, such as offset plant costs or increase employee salaries. But hey, in a world, we need to be saving money. And throughout my several months of research, I have come to 3 general conclusions. First, the anaerobic digestion process is a simple, low-maintenance design that gives us reduced maintenance costs, reduced personnel costs, and lower electricity costs. And secondly, it has a lower carbon footprint that greatly reduces our atmospheric pollution and odor due to closed system design. It's more energy efficient and reduces the demand for fossil fueled power And on top of the physical footprint of the digesters, smaller than the aerobic design. And my third general conclusion is it just provides us an opportunity to generate revenue, which I'm going to touch on that again, is the biggest plus of this system, is the ability to generate revenue by creating electricity. And therefore, it is my official recommendation that the city of Manhattan should move to immediately implement an anaerobic digestion system in the Manhattan wastewater treatment plant. Thank you very much for your time.